Hello. Thank you for joining me here in Dragon Age Origins. So, I realized since last time that I should be spending more time reading Codex entries. One, because a lot of them give me quest clues. I know for a fact that I have missed at least one quest because I didn't read a Codex entry thoroughly, and also because I enjoy doing it. And what's the point in doing this if I'm not having fun? So, if you're not interested in listening to me read a lot of text, I will place timestamps so that you can skip past it. But if you're a cool person, stick around. We're going to open today with a lot of reading. So let's get started. We'll start with creatures. Archdemon. In darkness eternal they searched for those who had goaded them on, until at last they found their prize, their god, their betrayer, the sleeping dragon Dumat. Their taint twisted even the false god, and the whisperer awoke at last, in pain and horror, and led them to wreak havoc upon all the nations of the world. The First Blight. Threnodies 8-7. The false dragon gods of the Tevinter Imperium lie buried deep within the earth, where they have been imprisoned since the Maker cast them down. No one knows what it is that drives the Darkspawn in their relentless search for the sleeping old gods. Perhaps it is instinct, as moths will fly into torch flames. Perhaps there is some remnant of desire for vengeance upon the ones who goaded the Magisters to assault heaven. Whatever the reason, when Darkspawn find one of these ancient dragons, it is immediately afflicted by the taint. It awakens, twisted and corrupted, and leads the Darkspawn in a full-scale invasion of the land. A blight. Deepstalker. A fool trusts his eyes. A wise man fears every rock is a deepstalker. Dwarven saying. Possibly the strangest of all the creatures found in the deep roads is the deepstalker. Tezpadam, as the dwarves call them, hunt in packs, generally by burrowing underground and then striking when their prey is in their midst. Stalkers come in several types. Spitters have venom glands and can spit secretions that slow or injure their prey. Jumpers hurl themselves at their targets, knocking them down and making the kill easier. The most common variety scares its prey, leaving the unfortunate victim helpless against the rest of the pack. Frightening. Genlock. These are the most common darkspawn in the underground. Stocky and tough, Genlocks are notoriously difficult to kill, even by magic. I don't know, my magic works pretty damn well. Alphas. In any group of Genlocks, there's usually one who is dominant. As the tallest, strongest, and smartest of their kind, Alphas serve as a sort of commander, directing or bullying the others in combat. Emissaries. The most intelligent of the Alphas become gifted sorcerers, with many abilities akin to blood magic. These are the emissaries, and they usually only appear during a blight. Oh dear, I've seen at least one of those. Hurlock. Taller than their Genlock cousins. Genlock, I was saying Genlock before. Taller than their Genlock cousins, the Hurlocks are roughly of human size, but are possessed of considerable strength and constitution. The shock troops of the Darkspawn, a single berserking Hurlock can often be matched for numerous opponents at once. They are known to adorn themselves with roughly carved tattoos to keep track of their kills and deeds, though it is unknown whether or not there is a uniform standard to these markings. Alphas. Alpha Hurlocks are more intelligent, more skilled fighters, often serving as commanders or even generals. Hurlock emissaries have also been known to appear during a blight. These Darkspawn are the only ones recorded as being capable of human speech, and are often capable of employing magic. Mabari Warhound. Dogs are an essential part of Ferelden culture, and no dog is more prized than the Mabari. The breed is as old as myth, said to have been bred from the wolves who served Dane. Prized for their intelligence and loyalty, these dogs are more than mere weapons or status symbols. The hounds choose their masters and pair with them for life. To be the master of a Mabari anywhere in Ferelden is to be recognized instantly as a person of worth. The Mabari are an essential part of Ferelden military strategy. Trained hounds can easily pull knights from horseback or break lines of pikemen, and the sight and sound of a wave of war dogs howling and snarling has been known to cause panic among even the most hardened infantry soldiers. Ogre. Towering over their darkspawn kin, the massive ogres are a rare sight on the battlefield. Traditionally, they only appear during a blight, but some records claim that ogres have been spotted in the deep roads hunting alone or in small groups. At least one report by the Grey Wardens claims that an ogre was spotted alone in the Kokari Wilds in 919 Dragon, though it was weakened and easily dispatched. Up to 100 of these creatures can accompany a darkspawn horde at any one time during a blight, often using their great strength to burst through the fortifications and demolish the front lines of the opposing army, and break the spine of kings. Too soon? They use brute force to charge their enemies like bulls, slam the ground with their fists to shake enemies off their feet, and hurl giant rocks into the face of oncoming foes. Melee can be difficult against a giant that snatches a warrior up in one hand, crushes the life out of him, or beating him into oblivion with the other hand. The nimble can try to wriggle his way free, or an ally can attempt an array of stunning blows on an ogre to free his comrade in danger. Grey Warden lore urges caution when slaying an ogre. Unless it is ensured that they have received a major wound to the head or the heart, it is possible that they are lying dormant and will regenerate to full health within a matter of minutes. During a blight, most Grey Wardens recommend burning all darkspawn to ashes, dead ogres in particular. Rage Demon. Encountered in the Fade, the true form of a rage demon is a frightening sight, a thing of pure fire, its body seemingly made of amorphous lava, and its eyes 2 pinpricks of baleful light radiating from its core. The abilities of such a demon center on the fire it generates. It burns those who come near, and the most powerful of its kind are able to lash out with bolts of fire and even firestorms that can affect entire areas. Fortunately, even powerful rage demons are less intelligent than most other varieties. Their tactics are simple: attack an enemy on sight with as much force as possible until it perishes. Some rage demons carry over their heat-based abilities into possessed hosts, but otherwise the true form is mostly seen outside of the Fade when it's specifically summoned by a mage to do his bidding. Shade. It has often been suggested that the only way for a demon to affect the world of the living is by possessing a living or once living body, but this is not always true. Indeed, a shade is one such creature, a demon in its true form that has adapted to affect the world around it. My hypothesis is this. We already know that many demons become confused when they pass through the veil into our world. They are unable to tell the living from the dead, the very static nature of our universe being confusing to a creature that is accustomed to a physicality defined entirely by emotion and memory. Most demons seek to immediately seize upon anything they perceive as life, jealously attempting to possess it. But what of those that do not? What of those that encounter no life or fail to possess a body? What of those that are more cautious by their nature? These demons watch. They lurk. They envy. In time, such a demon will learn to drain energy from the psyche of those it encounters, just as it did in the Fade. Once it has drained enough, it has the power to manifest and will forever after be known as a shade. Such a creature spurns possession. It instead floats as a shadow across its piece of land, preying upon the psyche of any who cross its path. Perhaps it believes itself still in the Fade? There is evidence to believe this is so. A shade will weaken the living by its very proximity. If it focuses its will, it can drain a single target very quickly. Some have even been known to assault the mind of a living victim, causing confusion or horror and making the target ripe for the kill. The tragedy of a shade is perhaps that once it has drained a target whole, its appetite is only heightened rather than slaked. From the journal of former senior enchanter Malleus, once of the Circle of Rivain, declared apostate in 920 Dragon Age. Sloth Demon. And I looked at the creature, and it had become me, a veritable copy of my form, of my very mind, stared back at me as if from within a mirror. I thought surely that this was a trick, an illusion meant to put me off my guard. But as I engaged the thing with my sword, it fought me with maneuvers that I recognized. It parried as I parried. It swung as I swung. It spoke to me and said things that only I could know. I think this demon of sloth has no form or identity of its own. It is envy as much as it's sloth, I believe, and mine was not the first shape it stole that day. An excerpt from a transcribed deposition of Tyrenius, Templar commander of Cumberland, 390 Towers. Okay, not quite getting this dating scheme, but you know what? That's okay. The most difficult assumption for some who study demons is to overcome the notion that a sloth demon is, in and of itself, slothful. If that were so, it seems highly unlikely that any such demons would cross the veil into our own world, or, once here, would fight to possess any creature with a will of its own. And we know both of these things to not be the case. Certainly, some demons are lazy and complacent, but who knows? Perhaps these creatures even cultivate such a reputation. The truth is that demons of sloth are named so because this is the portion of the human psyche that they feed upon. Doubt, apathy, entropy. They seek to spread these things. The sloth demon hides in its forms, a master of shapes and disguises, always in the last place you look. And from its hiding place, it spreads its influence. A community afflicted by a demon of sloth could soon become dilapidated pit, where injustices are allowed to pass without comment, and none of the residents could be aware of that such a change has even taken place. The sloth demon weakens, tires, tears at the edges of consciousness, and would much rather render its victim helpless than engage in a true conflict. Such creatures are best faced only with a great deal of will, and only with an eye to piercing their many disguises. Wisp. A great deal is made of the most powerful of demons, those that create abominations, and those that have changed the history of Thedas. It is often forgotten that not all demons are such awe-inspiring beings. Some that break through the cracks in the veil into our world is known as wisps, a sliver of a thought that once was. A wisp is a demon that has lost its power. Either it has existed in our world for too long without finding a true host, or it has been destroyed, often so we found by other demons. What remains of its mind clings tightly to the one concept that created it, a hatred of all living things. While its ability to target a living creature is limited, these wisps often mindlessly attack when encountered in the Fade. In the living world, they often have been known to maliciously lure the living into dangerous areas, being mistaken for lanterns or other civilized light sources. This does, however, seem to be the very limit of their cunning. From the journal of former senior enchanter Malleus, once of the Circle of Rivain, declared apostate in 920 Dragon Age. What is this thing that I summon? A spell wisp. Yeah, I thought so. It's one of these things. I guess it hates me. So why does it give me a bonus to spell power? Is that what its hatred does? Wolf. It is rather unfair, the reputation that the wolf possesses in Ferelden. For a people that so clearly adore their hounds, Ferelden simultaneously harbor a distrust of wolves that borders on the unreasonable. Unreasonable, that is, if one were not familiar with the ancient legends regarding werewolves. There was a time in Ferelden's past when demons inhabited the bodies of wolves in great numbers, causing the wars against werewolves and spreading great fear and panic. The werewolves were slain, but even today the noble wolf is still looked down upon with distrust. from Legends of Ferelden by Mother Aelis of Denerim 910 Dragon. An attack by wolves upon civilized folk happens rarely, often only in times of desperation, and even then only when the wolves have the advantage of numbers. This can change during a blight. When darkspawn rise onto the surface, their presence dramatically alters the savage nature of normal beasts. In blights past, as the corruption of the darkspawn spread through the wilder areas of Thedas, it would infect the animals found there, and the more powerful of them would survive and be transformed into a more vicious and dangerous beast. A blight wolf is one such example, mad with the pain of its infection, and only through the overriding command of the darkspawn does it still retain some semblance of its pack instincts. Blight wolves are always found in large groups, and will tend to overwhelm a single target if they can, using their numbers to their advantage. It is fortunate that these creatures rarely survive their corruption for very long. So that is all of the creatures that we have encountered so far. Items. We have encountered no items worth including in the Codex. The Aenar. When the Imperium occupied the area that is present-day Ferelden, they had 2 sites dedicated to magical experimentation at the extreme ends of the Imperial Highway. The southern one was the Fortress of Ostagar, which looked out over the Kokari Wilds. The northern one was Aenar, although the exact location is now a secret known only to a handful of Templars. Whatever it was the Tevinter were trying to discover at Aenar, their work was never completed. The fortress was overrun by disciples of Andraste upon hearing the news of her death. According to legend, it was a massacre, eerily silent, for the invaders caught the mages while all but one of them were in the Fade. The site was left structurally sound but spiritually damaged. Possibly because of this, the Chantry chose to put it to use as a prison. Accused Maleficarium and apostates are held in the confines of Aenar. Those who have a powerful connection to the Fade, and particularly to demons, will inevitably attract something across the veil, making the guilty somewhat easier to tell from the innocent. From Of Fires, Circles, and Templars, A History of Magic in the Chantry, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Maker. There was no word, for heaven or for earth, for sea or sky. All that existed was silence. Then the voice of the Maker rang out, the first word, and his word became all that might be, dream and idea, hope and fear, endless possibilities, and from it made his firstborn. And he said to them, in my image I forge you, to you I give dominion over all that exists. By your will may all things be done. Then, in the center of heaven, he called forth a city with towers of gold, streets with music for cobblestones and banners which flew without wind. There he dwelled, waiting to see the wonders his children would create. The children of the Maker gathered before his golden throne and sang hymns of praise unending, but their songs were the songs of the cobblestones. They shone with the golden light reflected from the Maker's throne. They held forth the banners that flew on their own. And the voice of the Maker shook the Fade, saying, in my image I have wrought my firstborn. You have been given dominion over all that exists. By your will all things are done, yet you do nothing. The realm I have given you is formless, ever-changing. And he knew he had wrought amiss. So the Maker turned from his firstborn, and took from the Fade a measure of its living flesh, and placed it apart from the spirits, and spoke to it, saying, here I decree opposition in all things, for earth, sky, for winter, summer, for darkness, light. By my will alone is balance sundered, and the world given new life. And no longer was it formless, ever-changing, but held fast, immutable, with words for heaven and for earth, sea and sky. At last did the Maker form the living world, make men immutable as the substance of the earth, with souls made of dream and idea, hope and fear, endless possibilities. Then the Maker said, to you, my second-born, I grant this gift. In your heart shall burn an unquenchable flame, all-consuming and never satisfied. From the Fade I crafted you, and to the Fade you shall return each night in dreams, that you may always remember me. And then the Maker sealed the gates of the Golden City, and there he dwelled, waiting to see the wonders his children would create. Threneides 5:1-8. The Fraternity of Enchanters. Another aspect of circle life is the fraternity. When a mage becomes an enchanter, he may ally himself with a fraternity. These are cliques that cross circle boundaries, mages of common interests and goals who band together to ensure that their voice is heard within the College of Magi in Cumberland. The largest fraternities currently are the Loyalists, who advocate loyalty and obedience to the Chantry, the Equitarians, who advocate temperance and follow a distinct code of conduct which they believe all mages should hold themselves to, the Libertarians, a growing fraternity, publicly maintaining greater power for the circles, but secretly advocating a complete split from the Chantry. A dangerous opinion, naturally. The Isolationists, a small group that advocates withdrawing to remote territories in order to avoid conflicts with the general populace. The Lucrosians, who maintain that the circle must do what is profitable first and foremost. They prioritize the accumulation of wealth, with the gaining of political influence a close second. So far, an alliance between the Loyalists and Equitarians has prevented the Libertarians from gaining much headway, but there are signs that the Equitarians may throw their support in with the Libertarians. If that happens, many mages predict it will come to civil war among the circles. From the Circle of the Magi, A History by First Enchanter Josephus. The Harrowing. Among apprentices of the Circle, nothing is regarded with more fear than the harrowing. Little is known about this rite of passage, and that alone would be cause for dread. But it is well understood that only those apprentices who pass this trial are ever seen again. They return as full members of the Circle of Magi. Of those who fail, nothing is known. Perhaps they are sent away in disgrace. Perhaps they are killed on the spot. I heard one patently ridiculous rumor among the circle at Ravane, which claimed that failed apprentices were transformed into pigs, fattened up, and served to dinner to the senior enchanters. But I could find no evidence that the Rivani circle ate any particular quantity of pork. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi. So if they did eat pork, then you would give credence to that rumor? Okay. Lyrium. More than half of the wealth of Orzammar comes from a single, extremely rare substance, lyrium. The Chantry believes it to be the waters of the Fade, mentioned in the Canticle of Threneides, the very stuff of creation itself, from whence the Maker fashioned the world. Only a handful of mining caste families hazard extracting the ore, finding veins in the stone quite literally by ear. For in its raw form, lyrium sings, and the discerning can hear the sound even through solid rock. Even though dwarves have a natural resistance, raw lyrium is dangerous for all but the most experienced of the mining caste to handle. Even for dwarves, exposure to the unprocessed mineral can cause deafness or memory loss. For humans and elves, direct contact with lyrium ore produces nausea, blistering of the skin, and dementia. Mages cannot even approach unprocessed lyrium. Doing so is invariably fatal. Despite its dangers, lyrium is the single most valuable mineral currently known. In the Tevinter Imperium, it has been known to command a higher price than diamond. The dwarves sell very little of the processed mineral to the surface, giving the greater portion of what they mine to their own smiths, who use it in the forging of all truly superior dwarven weapons and armor. What processed lyrium is sold on the surface goes only to the Chantry, who strictly control the supply. From the Chantry, it is dispensed both to the Templars, who make use of it in tracking and fighting Maleficarum, and to the Circle. In the hands of the Circle, lyrium reaches its fullest potential. Therefore, Mari craftsmen transform it into an array of useful items, from the practical, such as magically hardened stone for construction, to the legendary silver armor of King Calenhad. When mixed into liquid and ingested, lyrium allows mages to enter the Fade fully aware, unlike all others who reach it only while dreaming. Such potions can also be used to aid in the casting of especially taxing spells, for a short time granting a mage far greater power than he normally wields. Lyrium has its costs, however. Prolonged use becomes addictive, the cravings unbearable. Over time, Templars grow disoriented, incapable of distinguishing memory from present, or dream from waking. They frequently become paranoid as their worst memories and nightmares haunt their waking hours. Mages have additionally been known to suffer physical mutation. The Magister Lords of the Tevinter Imperium were widely reputed to have been so affected by their years of lyrium use that they could not be recognized by their own kin, nor even as creatures that had once been human. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. The Tranquil. Although apprentices do not know the nature of the harrowing, all of them understand its consequences. They either pass and become full mages, or they are never seen again. Those who fear to undertake this rite of passage, or those who are deemed too weak or unstable, are given the rite of tranquility instead. The actual procedure, like the harrowing, is secret, but the results are just as well known. The rite severs connection to the Fade. The tranquil, therefore, do not dream. This removes the greatest danger that threatens a weak or unprepared mage, the potential to attract demons across the veil. But this is the least of tranquility's effects, for the absence of dreams brings with it the end of all magical ability, as well as all emotion. The tranquil, ironically, resemble sleepwalkers, never entirely awake nor asleep. They are still part of our circle, however, and some might say they are the most critical part. They have incredible powers of concentration, for it is simply impossible to distract a tranquil mage, and this makes them capable of being craftsmen of such skill that they rival even the adeptness of the dwarves. The Four Mari, the branch of the circle devoted to item enchantment, is made up exclusively of tranquil, and is the source of all the wealth that sustains our towers. From On Tranquility and the Role of the Fade in Human Society, by First Enchanter Josephus. The Sacred Ashes of Andraste. Only one person witnessed Maferath's betrayal, Havard the Aegis. A childhood friend of Maferath, he accompanied his chief to the meeting with the Tevinters, not realizing what was planned. When he understood that Maferath was giving Andraste over to be executed, Havard, unwilling to draw swords against his friend and liege, placed himself between Andraste and the Tevinter soldiers. The Tevinters struck him down, and Maferath left him for dead. Gravely wounded, Havard made his way to the gates of Minrathos to stop the execution. When he reached it, the terrible deed was already done, the armies on the plains long since dispersed. Havard, cursing his weakness, gathered the earthly remains of Andraste that had been left to the wind and rain, and wept. When his fingers touched the pile of ash, his ears filled with song, and he saw before him a vision of Andraste, dressed in cloth made of starlight. She knelt at his side, saying, "The Maker shall never forget you, so long as I remember." The song faded, and the vision with it, and Havard was alone, but his wounds were healed. With new strength, Havard took up the ashes of Our Lady and bore them back to the lands of the Almari. From Thedas, Myths and Legends, by Brother Genetivi. Now for culture and history. Lothering. In ancient times, Lothering was little more than a trading post that served the fortress of Ostagar to the south. Nowadays it is larger, serving Redcliffe and the community of merchants and surface dwarves near Orzammar. Its location on the North Road gives it strategic value, so control of Lothering has historically been a matter of contention between the southern Banorn and the South Reach Arling. King Calenhad himself stepped in and awarded the town to South Reach in the Exalted Age, which has largely ended the feud, or at least the appearance of it. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genetivi. Ostagar. Representing the furthest point of encroachment by the ancient Tevinter Imperium into the barbarian lands of the southeast, the fortress of Ostagar was once one of the most important defensive holdings south of the Waking Sea. It stood at the end of the Korkari Wilds, watching for any signs of invasion by the barbarians known today as the Chastened Wilders. Straddling a narrow pass in the hills, the fortress needed to be bypassed to reach the fertile lowlands to the north, and proved to be exceedingly difficult for the Wilders to attack because of its naturally defensible position. Like most imperial holdings in the south, Ostagar was abandoned after Tevinter's collapse during the First Blight. It was successfully sacked by the Chastened Wilders, and then, as the Chastened threat dwindled following the creation of the modern Ferelden nation, fell to ruin completely. It has remained unmanned for 4 centuries, though most of the walls still stand, as does the tall Tower of Ishal, named after the great Archon that orders its construction. Ostergar remains a testament to the magical power of the Imperium that created it. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Grey Wardens. The First Blight had already raged for 90 years. The world was in chaos. A god had risen, twisted and corrupted. The remaining gods of Tevinter were silent, withdrawn. What writing we have recovered from those times is filled with despair, for everyone believed, from the greatest archons to the lowliest slaves, that the world was coming to an end. At Weishaupt Fortress in the desolate Anderfels, a meeting transpired. Soldiers of the Imperium, seasoned veterans who had known nothing their entire lifetimes except hopeless war, came together. When they left Weishaupt, they had renounced their oaths to the Imperium. They were soldiers no longer. They were Grey Wardens. The Wardens began an aggressive campaign against the Blight, striking back against the Darkspawn, reclaiming lands given up for lost. The Blight was far from over, but their victories brought notice, and soon they received aid from every nation in Thedas. They grew in number as well as reputation. Finally, in the year 992 of the Tevinter Imperium, upon the Silent Plains, they met the Archdemon Dumat in battle. A third of all the armies of northern Thedas were lost to the fighting, but Dumat fell, and the Darkspawn fled back underground. Even that was not the end. The Imperium once revered 7 gods: Dumat, Zazikal, Toth, and Doril, Razikael, Lusakand, and Earthamail. 4 have risen as archdemons. The Grey Wardens have kept watch through the ages, well aware that peace is fleeting, and that their war continues until the last of the dragon gods is gone. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. The Korkari Wilds. It is said that in the midst of the Black Age, when werewolves stalked the lands of Ferelden in numbers that kept every farmholder indoors and a hound on every doorstep, a powerful Arl of the Almari peoples stood and declared that he would put an end to the threat. His Arling stood on the border of the dark forest on the southern border of the Ferelden Valley, and he claimed that the werewolves used the forest to launch their midnight assaults on humanity. For 20 years, this Earl led an army of warriors and hounds deep into the forest. In his hunt for the werewolves, he slew not only every wolf he came upon, but also every member of the Chastened Wilder folk. Any one of them, he said, could harbor a demon inside, and thus be a werewolf in disguise. For 20 years, the forest rang with screams, and the rivers ran red. The tales say that an old chastened woman found her sons all dead at the Earl's blades. She pulled one of those very blades from one son's heart and plunged it into her own chest, cursing the Earl's name as she did so. Where her blood touched the ground, a mist began to rise. It spread and spread until it was everywhere in the forest. The Earl's army became lost, and it is said that they died there. Others say they wander still. The ruins of his Arling stand to this day, filled with the ghosts of women waiting eternally for their husbands to return. The forest of the legend is, of course, the Korkari Wilds. There are as many legends about the great southern forest as there are shadows, or so the saying goes. The chastened wilder folk have made their home there since mankind first came to these lands, and the wildlands spread as far into the south as anyone has ventured. Beyond the mists are vast tracts of snow, white-capped mountains, and entire fields of ice. It is a land too cold for mankind to survive, yet the chastened eke out an existence even there, and they tell of horrors beyond the wilds that the lowland folk could not begin to comprehend. To most, Ferelden simply ends with the Korkari Wilds. There is nothing beyond. The Wilds is a land of great trees, wet marshes, and dangerous monsters. What more need be said? From Land of the Wilders by Mother Alis, Chantry Scholar, 918 Dragon. Darkspawn. Those who had sought to claim heaven by violence destroyed it. What was golden and pure turned black. Those who had once been mage lords, the brightest of their age, were no longer men, but monsters. Threnodies, 12:1. Sin was the midwife that ushered the Darkspawn into this world. The Magisters fell from the Golden City, and their fate encompassed all our worlds, for they were not alone. No one knows where the Darkspawn came from, a dark mockery of men. In the darkest places they thrive, growing in numbers as a plague of locusts will. In raids, they will often take captives, dragging their victims alive into the deep roads, but most evidence suggests that these are eaten. Like spiders, it seems Darkspawn prefer their food still breathing. Perhaps they are simply spawned by the darkness. Certain we know that evil has no trouble perpetuating itself. The last blight was in the Age of Towers, striking once again at the heart of Tevinter, spreading south into Orlais and east into the Free Marches. The plague spread as far as Ferelden, but the withering and twisting of the land stopped well beyond our borders. Here, Darkspawn have never been more than the stuff of legends. In the northern lands, however, particularly Tevinter and the Anderfells, they say Darkspawn haunt the hinterlands, preying on outlying farms and isolated villages, a constant threat. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. Now we're going to learn about some characters. Alistair. You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. Alistair was a novice Templar when Duncan recruited him into the Grey Wardens, or rescued him, as Alistair would say. His mother was a serving girl who died when Alistair was very young. He was raised by Aemon Garin, Earl of Redcliffe, for a time. Queen Honora. We have been given the gift of freedom by our forebears. Let us not squander it. The only child of the war hero Loghain MacTyr, Honora has never been one to stay quietly in the background. It is common knowledge that in the 5 years Honora and Kaelin held the throne together, she was the one wielding the power. She is held in much higher esteem than her husband by the people of Ferelden, nobility and commoners alike, and commands the respect even of foreign nations, having once inspired Empress Selene of Orlais to declare, "Honora of Ferelden is a solitary rose among brambles." Zing. King Kaelin Therin. I'd hoped for a war like in the tales, a king riding with the fabled Grey Wardens against a tainted god. Son of the legendary King Merrick Therin, Kaelin was the first Ferelden king born into a land free from foreign rule in 2 generations. Since his father's death, he's held the throne alongside his queen, Honora. He fell in battle alongside Duncan at Ostagar. So I imagine these will update. Some of them will. Or perhaps they will just show up when they're finished. Sir Cawthrain. Some of us know what honor and loyalty are. Cawthrain came to Loghain's service the hard way. She belonged to a poor family and was out doing work on the farm when she saw a man on horseback being attacked by several bandits. She rushed to his assistance and found out belatedly that the man she saved was none other than the great hero Loghain. Though she was hardly more than a child, he took her in, offering her a position with his soldiers. And she climbed through the ranks through sheer determination. Becoming the commander of Merrick's Shield, Loghain's elite soldiers, was the proudest moment of her life. Data! The Mabari is clever enough to speak, and wise enough to know not to. Ferelden proverb. Irlania found this Mabari in the camp at Ostagar. His master was killed in the wilds, and Data fell ill from biting the Darkspawn in battle. Data seems to have chosen Irlania as his new master now, seeking Irlania out after the battle at Ostagar and warning of an impending Darkspawn attack. Such a good boy. Duncan. Men and women from every race Warriors and mages, barbarians and kings, the Grey Wardens sacrificed everything to stem the tide of darkness, and prevailed. Like many others, Duncan gave up his family name when he joined the ranks of the Wardens, a symbolic gesture of cutting ties. He might say this was a convenience in his case, however. His mother was from the Anderfells, his father from Tevinter. His childhood was spent in the Free Marches and Orlais. His people were everywhere, and his homeland was nowhere. He was given the almost impossible task of leading the Wardens in Ferelden, a kingdom that had thrown the Order out 200 years earlier. Facing local suspicion and hostility, he set about finding recruits. He was killed in battle against overwhelming numbers of Darkspawn at Ostagar, alongside King Kaelin. Arl Aemon Garen. Nobility does not exist without obligation. We owe all we have, even our lives, to our land and our people. Oh, if people in the real world actually believed that, it would definitely be a better place. As the maternal uncle of King Kaelin, Arl Aemon is one of the king's most trusted advisors. Redcliffe, while not a large or especially wealthy part of Ferelden, is a critical strategic location. The fortress guards the western pass that leads to Orlais, as well as the major trade route with Orzammar. A well-respected man, though not the most charismatic, King Kaelin once said of him, "My Uncle Aemon is a man everyone thinks well of, when they remember to think of him at all." He fell ill with a mysterious condition that even magic could not treat. Okay, yeah, this is definitely gonna continue. Probably. I imagine it will. Flemeth. You were required to do nothing, least of all believe. Ages ago, legend says Ban Conobar took to wife a beautiful young woman who harbored a secret talent for magic, Flemeth of Highever. And for a time they lived happily, until the arrival of a young poet, Osin, who captured the lady's heart with his verse. They turned to the chastened tribes for help, and hid from Conobar's wrath in the wilds, until word came to them that Conobar lay dying. His last wish was to see Flemeth's face one final time. The lovers returned, but it was a trap. Conobar killed Osin and imprisoned Flemeth in the highest tower of the castle. In grief and rage, Flemeth worked a spell to summon a spirit into this world to wreak vengeance upon her husband. Vengeance she received, but not as she planned. The spirit took possession of her, turning Flemeth into an abomination. A twisted, maddened creature, she slaughtered Conobar and all his men and fled back into the wilds. For 100 years, Flemeth plotted, stealing men from the chastened to sire monstrous daughters. Horrific things that could kill a man with fear. These Korkari witches led an army of chastened from the wild to strike at the Almari tribes. They were defeated by the hero Cormac, and all the witches burned, so they say, but even now the Wilders whisper that Flemeth lives on in the marsh, and she and her daughters steal those men who come too near. Morrigan's mother saved the last Grey Wardens from death at the top of the Tower of Ishal, but just who or what Flemeth truly is a mystery. Knight Commander Greagor. Your magic is a gift, but it's also a curse. The Circle of Magi has trained you, and we Templars of the Chantry stand vigil to ensure that training is adequate. Grim and taciturn, Greagor has been Knight Commander of the Templar forces stationed at the Circle Tower for so many years that hardly anyone except the first Enchanter recalls that he is not simply part of the tower itself. First Enchanter Irving. If you want to survive, you must learn the rules and realize that sometimes sacrifices are necessary. There is no higher office in a Circle Tower than that of First Enchanter. The one who holds this title must not only be an able administrator, but also a mentor, leader, and surrogate parent to all the mages of the tower. Irving has proven himself to be all these things with an added dose of cunning. Most apprentices know that little goes on in the tower that Irving does not know. He can soothe Templars angered by some childish magical prank at the same time that he lauds the pranksters, and everyone walks away satisfied. Loghain MacTyr, the Bastard. Understand this. I will brook no threat to this nation from you or anyone. Loghain was born a farmer during a time when his country was under foreign occupation. When he was still a boy, he joined the resistance, where his considerable tactical genius quickly became apparent. He became close friends with Prince Merrick, the last true heir to the Ferelden throne, and together they led the rebels to drive out the forces of the Orlesian Empire. Merrick raised his friend to the nobility, and Loghain is now more of a symbol than a man. He represents the Ferelden ideals of hard work and independence. During the battle at Ostagar, he fled the field, leaving King Cailan and the Grey Wardens to die. He then returned to Denerim and declared himself the regent to his daughter, Queen Honora, demanding that Ferelden follow him against the Darkspawn, upsetting a great many of the bands. Morrigan. Witch of the Wilds? Such idle fancies, those legends. Have you no minds of your own? Of herself, Morrigan says little. She does not deny being a Witch of the Wilds, but beyond that, everything about her is in question. Her mother claims to be Flemeth. If that's true, then Morrigan might well be a very powerful witch, for the tales of the daughters of Flemeth tell of twisted, monstrous women who can kill a man with fear. She was made to accompany the surviving Grey Wardens, the payment, Flemeth said, for saving their lives at the Tower of Ishal. Ban Tegan Gwerin. The Banorn will not bow to you simply because you demand it. Younger brother to Arl Aemon of Redcliffe and uncle to King Cailan, Tegan holds the Banorn of Rainsfair, a tiny province of Redcliffs squeezed between the Frostback Mountains and Lake Calenhad. Ban Tegan avoids the Denerim court except to go hunting with his nephew, and rarely makes himself heard at the lands meet, preferring to leave politics to his brother. Okay. All the rest are notes that were kind of... Well, actually, these are the credits for the game, I think. Feast Day Pranks, Feast Day Gifts. Not sure what that is. But then we've got the note about from the night that we needed to give to Sir Donald. And then we got quest-related stuff. If I had read this, I would have known what the sprinkling the ashes would have done. Farewell letter to Jogby. I read this. Okay. And then Rigby's last will and testament. It would have been sealed lockbox in our camp, nestled in a Tevinter ruin in the western reaches of the wilds. Yeah, if I had read this, I would have gone and looking for it. Yeah, and then I read this. So, yeah. That's all of the codex for now. I have no idea how long this is going to go, because it's going to require a fair bit of editing. I think I'll end things here. Thanks for joining me for today. I'll see you tomorrow for some actual gameplay.